Hello, everybody. It's us again. We are back with the Ames show. So it's me, Kirsty, obviously, with my excellent flower crown. Because last time I wore a unicorn horn and somebody, you know who you are, wrote in and told me what it looked like. So I'm not going to be wearing that again. But I am joined by the magnificent Mike Ames. Hi, Mike. How you doing?
I'm very good. I thought I was going to be wearing one of those flower crowns as well, because she sent Alan one, but he just refuses to wear it because he's a professional. But then there's me. But look, we're joined today by a very special guest, Alan Kenny, and we are going to be talking about becoming more confident and overcoming your fear of failure. And the reason I wanted Alan to come on the show, I mean, we've done things together, and it always interests me. It always inspires me. I wish I was actually watching this, not taking part in it, because I want to spend time just listening to what Alan's got to say. Alan's my coach, and I think that what's important is that the things we're going to talk about are not your happy-clappy, coachy type things that some people do. This is real stuff, right? Absolutely. And if you do suffer from a hesitance, let's not say a fear of failure necessarily, but a hesitance because of failure, then really dig in today, because it will help. So welcome to the show, Alan. Absolute pleasure to have you.
Thanks, Mike. Hi, Kirsty. Hi, Mike. Hello, everybody. And if I had been sent a flower crown, I would have it on.
I know that, Alan. I
know
that.
It would only be an improvement on this head.
Next time. Okay, so obviously, as we mentioned, we're talking about the fear of failure today, and we're going to get into that in a second. But everybody who's watching, have you ever done anything that really scares you? Is there anything that's happened that you were so, fearful to do, but you did it? If you have, please let us know in the comments, because we always like to hear real world examples. But whilst that's happening, Alan, now we obviously sent out this, Mike put on LinkedIn that we were going to be doing the show today, and we got quite a few comments around a similar theme. And I wanted to get your opinion on it before we really kicked off, which is a lot of people are saying that fear of failure is a good thing. It stops them from doing silly things. It keeps them safe. What would you say about that?
Yeah, I saw some of those. It's a really interesting point. I guess there's probably a distinction that's worth bringing out. Like, there's fear of failure. And what I would say is sometimes there's a little voice inside our head, which is asking us that kind of what if questions. What if I look foolish? What if it doesn't work out the way I think it should work out? And it's all those little voices that we correlate to being fear. They're the ones that I would say we should probably be pretty distrustful of. But then there's the other one, and this is where I'm going to talk about this, like we're perfectly built, as every single human being is perfectly built to experience life to the fullest. Because inside us, we also have those realizations, which is, you know what, I probably shouldn't jump out in front of a car, or there's a lion there, I'll probably stay in the Jeep, because we have an inner knowing, which is, that's what's going to serve me well. Yeah. And so I'm kind of want to make that distinction, and we'll talk about it more as we go through, which is to watch out for that kind of ego thinking, which is, I'm going to try and keep us safe from looking perhaps foolish, and our inherent wisdom, which is the one that's looking after us.
It seems to me that really it's around about a consequence of failure, isn't it? So if you're going to do something, the consequence of failure is catastrophic, then fear is probably a good thing, because if you have to do it, it probably makes you self-examine a little bit more to make sure you stand a better chance of getting through it. And if you don't have to do it, like getting out of the Jeep and being with the lion, then don't do it. Stay in the Jeep. What's wrong with you? So I think that's the consequence of failure thing. But a consequence of failure of looking foolish or not being successful and people thinking, he's not very good at it. Really? I mean, so what? It's not that much of a big deal, is it, at the end of the day? So it's an important point, I think, to make, that one.
Perfect. Yes, thank you very much. So on that then, on that, so there are some people, and maybe myself, who are giant bags of anxiety and fears. And there are some people who just seem to just be fine. They find their wings, they fly, they soar, they're successful. Why am I not one of those people, Alan? Why are some people, so free, and some people sort of more bogged down by the fear aspect?
There's so much in that, Kirsty, that I want to dig into. You mentioned finding your wings, and Everybody has wings, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
The key thing is, like, where do people look? So sometimes what we end up doing is we look outside of ourselves for our wings. And we think about, like, we make confidence conditional. Well, I'll be really confident when or if I have enough experience, when I've spent enough time, when I've done enough research, when I feel like an expert, then I'm going to feel confident. And so we keep pushing, we believe that when we find something outside of ourselves, we're going to feel that sense of confidence.
Can I just say on that one, that happens a lot with my clients when I want them to do something, because I'm a big believer in agile development and agile marketing. So just give it a go and see what happens. Now I want to do this, I want to do that. I want to get everything lined up and perfect before we do it. I often feel that is an excuse so they don't have to do it, truth be told, not because it's necessary. So I totally get that one.
Yeah, and Michael, I think we'll probably talk about this as we go through. What's causing that in people is, and I believe this happens in everybody, is they're having some thinking going on, which is causing them to behave in that way. So it kind of comes back to that egoic thinking. But the distinction maybe to come back to here is so what's different from conditional confidence? And for me, it's thinking about it as self-confidence. And I want to even turn that around, like confidence in self. Before you're doing anything, before you take on anything, who is it that we have confidence in? And, the best example of this is to look at children, and particularly young children. If you watch babies, young children learning to walk, learning to speak, they have they don't have any of the adult thinking going on, which is, oh, well, what if I look foolish? Actually, if they did, they would never walk. We would never walk. We would never talk. We would kind of sit around, probably rocking backwards and forwards. Because what they know to do is to follow their innate wisdom, which is, oh, you know what? I think I can get up and walk. And so they give it a go. And they might fall over and they get back up again and they move forward. And as they get older, even in like younger children, you see they have an inclination to go and do something. Oh, there's someone new. I'm going to go and talk to them. They don't have any of the fear or the uncertainty or doubt moving forward, because we come pre-packaged with wings, finding our wings. Actually, that's how we're built. We have the perfect system. We come with innate wisdom. Like, we might call it our gut. We might call it our instinct. I call it wisdom. Like, it's our sense of knowing. We have the ability to be aware of what's going on around us and what's going on inside our heads. And we have the ability to think. We have the gift of thought. Sometimes thought's a bit like a hammer. We can either use it to build stuff, or we could just use it to hit ourselves in the head. Sorry, Mike, you're going to say something there?
No, I'm just going back, just thinking about what you'd said there. A few things resonated with me. Picasso said that everybody is born an artist. It's the world that beats it out of you. And I think that what you're saying is it's something similar. People didn't even know there was a consequence of failure. That's the point. It's like, as a baby, well, I'll just get up and walk then. Oh, I can fall over, but no matter, because you know what? I can get right back up again. And so that consequence of failure is something that's, I suppose, fed into us through experience, which is fine, but also it's put into us. Don't do that because that'll happen. And sometimes it's good. Don't touch the fire because it'll burn you. Burner. I get that. But other times it's nothing to do with that. It's bringing their own prejudices forward onto you, really, and loading them onto you so you don't do things. You haven't actually done anything and learned by it. You're just doing it because someone else said you shouldn't. And that's not necessarily a good thing, is it? That's at least got to be questioned, I would think.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing is, and I reckon everyone who's watching now will be able to recall multiple times where they've had that kind of childlike experience, where they've just gone with something. They've been moved to do something they've not really thought about, and they've gone and done it. And then they're like, that felt amazing. And they almost surprise themselves. They're thinking, I'm actually pretty good at taking things on and doing things. And
so can you right there, just to put this out there again, just for those people who've just joined, can you put in the comments anything that was an experience that, like Alan just described. So something you didn't want to do or felt afraid to do. In my case, it was a parachute jump. I was scared to death. And I took each step at a time. The most difficult step was standing on the wing. I didn't like that.
That made me feel a bit sick just thinking about it, to be honest with you.
Didn't like that, but I did it. And you're right. It's amazing when you've done it. So if I was typing in the comments, I'd be putting that in. But put something in the comments if you've overcome a fear and done something amazing. Alan, sorry about that.
Yeah, no, I was going to say just the kind of image that came to mind for me there. It's a bit like, have you ever lost your car keys and you're desperately searching for them?
All the time, yeah.
And then you reach your hand inside your pocket and they've been there all along. Like, I think of self-confidence a bit like that. Sometimes we go off outside of ourselves thinking we've got to find something to help us find this level of belief or confidence in ourselves. And then we just kind of look back inside and we go, oh, hang on, I have exactly what I need in the moment, no matter what it is that's going on.
It's just sort of instinct, isn't it? You just sort of like, I'm doing it, I've done it. Oh, I'm really glad I didn't think about that. Because
teaching children to ride a bike is the classic. I've had 3 children and taught them all to ride bikes, and it's the same thing. I can't do this, I'll fall off. You won't. I can't do this, I'll fall off. I'm taking the stabilizers off. Don't take the stabilizers off. And then the look in their face the first time, I'm doing it. I'm not falling off. And then, of course, they fall off. I accept that. But for that period before they fall off or don't realize that they've got brakes, they'll look, I can do this. And because they've got everything that they need. And it's such a massive point, I think.
Yeah, I mean, we've had a couple of really good answers. So this is a great one. Gavin makes a really good point here, pushing those boundaries. But I imagine a lot of people in recruitment, especially when they started, had a very similar fear. That fear of picking up the phone and just speaking to someone who has no idea who you are, who's not a family member or not a friend. That is, I've done it, and it's not something that I particularly enjoyed, which is why I'm not in recruitment. Just FYI. But yeah, I think that's a very common one. This Chris's though is probably my favourite because.
Oh, Chris, you must tell us more. You can't just say firewall.
No, I like that. I like the way he just left it with mystery.
But was he wearing asbestos socks or something, or did it hurt? So
many questions, so few answers. But what I want to do, so on that, so we're born with this innate confidence, with this self-belief, whatever you want to call it. What happens? Because honestly, I am a menagerie of anxiety and self-doubt. So what happened from when I was a 3-year-old who refused stabilizers on my bike because I knew I could do it because my brother's good. What happened to that 2-year-old to this 30-year-old one of, anxiety
30.
balls? 31. 31. I own my age. Thank you.
Well, Mike's already kind of touched on a little bit, which is we start to get conditioning. We start to get beliefs around what we should be, what we shouldn't be, what is and what isn't, what's possible. And that starts to stimulate some thinking. And what I most often find is that we end up, when let's say we have an inclination to go and do something, whatever, fire walk, jump out of a plane, make a tough phone call, and we know that we want to do it and it's kind of there. We go up into our thinking and we start often thinking about the future. So we're no longer thinking about, we go into the scenarios, we might think about, oh my gosh, there's so much to do, or what will people think? What if it doesn't work out? So we go into all of these thoughts about the future and we experience them as though they're real. And when I said we come with a perfect system, we do. Like, we are thinking machines. We're meaning-making machines. So we're not really living in the experience of reality. We're living in the experience of our thinking about reality. So when we go off into those thoughts, that's where insecurity comes from. Because it's not that we're lacking confidence. It's that we've gone up inside our heads and we're starting to try and predict the future. And inevitably, we're scaring ourselves. Like, this is where the egoic, I call it the ego brain, comes in, like our little inner voice that's trying to keep us safe, because it's on our side. And what it's really trying to protect us from is that unknown. And so the first thing for us to do is to start to recognize that actually it's not real. And when we're
And
off,
most of it doesn't happen, does it? Mostly it never happens either, Alan. You know, that I do remember, again, it's all coming back to me, supposing my parachute doesn't open.
Yep.
Honestly, you think that, you're going up, you're sitting there, scared. I was really scared. Supposing the parachute doesn't open. Well, of course it opens. Like very, very, very few parachutes don't open. But at the time, I was worried mine wouldn't.
Yep.
And I think if someone had given me a step ladder down from the plane to the ground, I probably would have taken it at that particular time. Yeah.
Yeah,
No way out. So totally get that.
And I bet everyone who's put into the comments or they've thought, oh, this is the scariest thing I did. If you'd said to them beforehand, A, did anything that was scaring you beforehand happen? And the vast majority of cases would be no. And in a lot of cases would be, and in terms of what did happen, did it meet or surpass what you would have loved to have been the outcome? And so whether it's jumping out of a plane or as simple as taking on a tough phone call, the thinking that we have that scares us very rarely comes to pass. But here's the kind of rub, is that when we go and do it, then actually we find, hang on, that's not nearly half as bad as I thought. And wow, look at the possibility and potential that exists in leaning into that situation and having this trust in self, that when we're operating in real time, that we have everything we need in that moment to do what's deliberate. It's just when we're off in our heads thinking about the future.
Yeah.
Sense.
My therapist once said to me, if you worry about the worst thing that could happen, then you experience it twice, because you experience it when you're thinking about it before it happens. And then if it happens, you have to actually experience it again. So just don't worry about it. And if it happens, you only experience it once, you're still better off. But odds are it won't. And I remember at the time thinking like, it's genius. It's absolute genius. But it is true. It's like my therapist says some great things. So I do have one question, which I imagine some people are thinking about, which is, but sometimes thinking about the future and thinking about what could go wrong helps you prepare to sort of put fires out before they get bigger. Do you know what I mean? So if I'm in a situation where I'm thinking, oh, I'm going to make this phone call, and what if I make a mistake? Oh, what if I make a mistake? I can, cough and pretend that I was choking on water or something. Do you know what I mean? If you come up with if you think about things, you can come up with contingency plans. But obviously, when you take that too far, you get so fear of failure. Where do you find the balance between, okay, planning something out that's going to go dreadfully wrong and crippling yourself with fear so that you don't do anything at all? Is there a benefit to both, or is it just mind blank?
Good question.
Yeah, it's a great question. So I would say we always have a good inclination for the things that we should do in advance of something. So let's just take that example. And actually I was talking to someone yesterday, so I'll use a real conversation on this one. And this person said, I do this. I operate in real time in meetings because I really believe in being connected to the meeting and I want to be totally present. So he said, I tell people that I don't prepare and I just turn up and be present. And then as I listened to him talk, he said, well, aside from, like, I know to do, I'll do a bit of research on the person that I'm meeting and I do this and this. But aside from that, I never prepare. I was like, how do you know to do those things? He said, well, I just know, like, that's what allows me to be in the moment because I just do those things. That's what I call like our inner sense of wisdom. And maybe linking back to what we chatted about, fear of doing something that might inadvertently hurt us. This is where we have to get really good at listening to our gut instincts, which is, if you have the inclination that says, oh, I should probably do a little bit of preparation for that call, that's going to help me be in the moment. Do the preparation. If you have those thoughts that come to mind that have a good feeling, and I think our feelings are like our GPS system. Something pops into your head, and you're like, that sounds like a good idea. Follow that good feeling. If you've got something which is, oh my gosh, but what am I going to do if I make a mistake? It's like, don't worry about that. Like, you'll be fine in the moment because you can't predict the future.
So just pulling on this, what you're saying, what I'm hearing here is that one thing you can do, everyone can do, is prepare. So not worry, that's different. That's what Kirsty was saying. Worrying is like a loop that you don't actually get anything done. You just keep convincing yourself terrible things will happen. Preparation is thinking, well, okay, what could happen? Well, if that happens, I'll do this.
Mm.
So when we train people to sell, okay, I use the example that Kirsty has said there. When we train people to sell, we don't give them a script. We teach them a framework, because in any one situation, there's only a finite number of things that can happen. So we just teach them to be able to react to each one. And then we role play the bejeebies out of it. So they've already kind of experienced it at play. And then when it happens, well, they're more confident anyway, because it's like, well, I know what to do. If this happens, I'm going to do that, really. So it's fine. But then when it does happen, they almost click into automatic mode and they respond in the way that they've been taught. So it seems to me that forward thinking is fine. Not forward thinking, just thinking about really bad things, but to be able for you to prepare and be able to surmount anything that could happen gives you that confidence. Would that be a reasonable thing to say?
Yeah, absolutely. If that's what comes to mind, to do some preparation, do some preparation. Maybe the piece in here that I would add in is, and I'm thinking, let's take sales, because it's a good example. Let's imagine it might be you're early in your sales career, for example, or you've got someone who's early in the sales career. You're going to make mistakes. Like, things are not going to go as expected. So there's also that kind of depowering a little bit of the, well, what happens if it goes wrong? And like, well, things will go wrong from time to time, and you'll still be fine. And when a real sign of confidence in someone is when we get really comfortable with, oh yeah, actually, when I think about the future, I'm pretty sure of a couple of things. Some things are going to go really well, and some things are not. I'm going to know lots of stuff, and I'm not going to know lots of stuff.
Yeah.
So when you're in meetings or when something's happening in the future and it pans out really great, you're like, oh, that's good. And when it doesn't, you can be like, well, okay, this hasn't gone so well. Or, if you don't know something, being totally comfortable with not knowing and being able to say, if someone's, you might think you should know, but if you don't know, be like, actually, I don't know that. But I'll find out even that in itself, when you start to get comfortable with, I can't predict the future. And I'm going to be fine. Then you can show up. And when things do happen in the moment, you almost have more of a curiosity to it than a bad reaction. You're like, okay, that's what happened. And you move forward, because, when we, again, getting caught up in our thinking and lose confidence, because we create these weird expectations. I'm doing something for the first time. Oh my gosh, what if I'm not good at it? Well, it's a bit of a news flash. You're doing it for the first time. You probably won't be very good at it. Like, I've just taken up golf. I'm crap at golf. I still feel pretty confident, though, every time I walk out into the course, that I'm going to enjoy kind of getting around, and I'm going to play some poor shots. It's just a different way of looking at it, which is, no, I'm confident in me, and I'm playing the game of golf. I'm confident in me, and I'm playing the game of life.
So you're not connecting the two, are you? That is what you're saying. You're not saying I'm not very good at golf, therefore I'm not confident. Right? You're not saying that. You're saying I am confident in me. Oh, and I happen to be playing golf, which I'll play some good shots and quite a few bad shots, but that's fine, because I'll learn about something when I come off the course that I didn't know when I went into it.
Yeah, and golf's a great metaphor for life.
I think so too.
I know you're not into golf, Kirsty, but if you just think about what you said, I'm confident in me, like I am before I do anything, and I can do anything. And some things I'm going to get really good at, and I can be confident in my ability to do that thing over time, which is great. And some things I'm going to do and either think, you know what, that's not for me, or I'm just not very good at it yet. But that's okay, because that's not who I am. That's me playing the game. And that's the opportunity for us all, is to go, oh no, confidence isn't conditional on any of those things. I'm perfectly built to play the game of life. And the game of life has drama in it. And like, I'm going to be caught up in that drama sometimes in my head, which is going to make me feel insecure. And when I see through that and come back to myself, I'm going to be okay. And other times, I don't even get caught up in the drama in my head at all. And I just come from who I am. And that's when we jump out of planes. That's when we walk on fire. And that's when we pick up the phone and make the tough phone call and then suddenly go, I'm pretty good at this game. Like that's the separation that we're almost looking at.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot to be said for that. Go on, Kirsty.
I've got a really good, because on this, so Rob has made a great point. I'm putting this warning up for spoilers, even though it happened like 3 years ago. But anybody who's watched Avengers, Mike, I know you haven't, but he uses this: if you take away the doubt stone and the fear. So if you take away the doubt and the fear and anxiety, what would your new timeline look and feel like? And I think that's really sums up what you've just said. You know, like if I remove those things and just say, I'm doing this because I enjoy it, or I'm doing this because I want to, or I'm doing this just to see what happens.
Well, because I have to.
Or because I have to, because this is something that is necessary. I'm just going to go with it, be in the moment, and take away whatever I'm going to take away from it. I think it's a really powerful statement. And I really like that, Rob. I know Mike doesn't get the Avengers thing because he's not seen any. But it is, I think it's a really good analogy.
Am I like Iron Man then, or something? Or...
Under no circumstances, no. So sort of on that, you know, I'm conscious of time on this. So somebody's in this thing and they're thinking, right, okay, I'm trying to be present. I'm trying to take away, you know, sessions over the future. But what can be done? What can I do? What can I do to get my wings unfurled after being closed up for so long? What kind of steps can people take in order to do this?
Well, this is where I think the really good news comes into this, because it's actually super, super simple. When we see that we're doing that, the first thing I say to people is just come back to right now. Mm-hmm. And let's imagine it can be anything, that any situation that you've got or anything that you're thinking about doing. And if you're caught up in that insecurity, just settle down and in the now, see what you know to do. Like here, if I've got time for a quick story from like this past week, who was they had a situation around resource management. They were looking at were going to have a big influx of customers, and like the whole situation that was unfolding was like, I just don't know if I'm going to be able to do it and if I'm going to be able to figure it out, and I'm just not feeling very sure of myself, and so we were talking with that, and it was around confidence, and then it was like, well, okay, but when you come back to right now, what do you know to do? Said, oh, well, right now, like I need to go and build a spreadsheet and I need to do that. And I'm pretty sure that when I do that, then I'm going to have a better idea. Like, how do you feel about doing that? I feel great about doing that. Like, why don't you just do that? Like, oh yeah. And then see how you feel on the other side of it. So the first thing I say is when you come back to the now, there's just an awful lot less to do than we think. It's like, do what you know to do now. If you come back to the now and you're actually, I'm worried about something that's going to happen in the future. So let's just imagine you've got a big meeting and you're thinking, yeah, well, I'm as ready as I'm going to be. Well, then there's nothing to be done. And if there's nothing to be done, go and do something else, because it will take your mind off it. And when you take your mind off it, all those feelings will disappear because they're not real. They're real feelings, but the thoughts associated with them, they're not real, and they'll disappear of their own accord once you go and do something else.
I think that is a really great and practical thing to do, because what it does, it seems to me, is break the cycle of worry, or whatever you would call it, the cycle of self-doubt that you have, because you go and do something. Well, I've done that then, and that's okay. And when you go back, it's not going to look the same as it was when you left it, is it? It's going to be different. No. And I think if you combine that with okay. Well, forget what might happen. What can I do right now? Like Kirsty was saying earlier, well, I could prepare. Well, I'll do that then. That's what I'll do, or whatever. I could learn a skill. I could learn how to pick the telephone up and use it. Well, I'll do that then, because if I learn that, I'll feel a bit more confident. I know what you said, if and when, but if it gives you confidence, or if it's something you can do, well, do it. I think that's really good advice.
And the funny thing is, when you go away and you stop thinking about stuff, it's when your greatest insights and wisdom appear. Like, it's why they say you get your best ideas in the shower. Mm-hmm. Like, because you're not thinking about it, suddenly you're like, that's what I should do. Oh, okay, I know now. Whereas you never find that when you think, I need to figure out what I've got to do. It's like, okay, well, good luck with that one. Probably not going to work out so well.
Just a bunch of people going hee no, and out the way. Yeah, no, I completely agree. And nature hates a vacuum, doesn't it? So if there's a vacuum, it fills it. So if you're trying not to think about something, it'll just fill it with worries and things.
Pink elephants.
Pink elephants, yeah, exactly. If I tell you not to think about pink elephants, what do you think about pink elephants? But if I go out and do something, if I read a book, if I go for a walk, if I ring a friend, if I do something else in my job that I know I can do in the meantime, then it means that there's no space to be filled with worries. They go off into the ether and do ether type things. Okay, fantastic. So ultimately then, I think you've just sort of answered it really, but at the end of the show, I like to ask people are watching this and the fear of failure is something that they've been thinking about. What's the first thing that they do? What's the first thing they go away after watching this video and do? And what would you suggest?
Yeah, it's probably with the fear of repetition, I would say to them, just settle down, be distrustful of the kind of the scary thinking. Mm-hmm. And if there's something they know to do, just take that first step and do it. If there's nothing to do with regards to what they're caught up in their heads about, just go and do something else. And I would say do the most enjoyable thing that they could imagine doing, and they'll be absolutely fine. And if I could fit, like, there's one quote which I just absolutely love, which is by it's a French poet, and I probably will get his pronunciation wrong. It's Guillaume Apollinaire, which goes like, "Come to the edge," he said. "We're scared, we're afraid," they said. "Come to the edge." They came, he pushed, and they flew.
Wow.
Like, there really are very few edges, and you really do have wings. So like that would be where I would just say to people, just step in. Like, you're more amazing than you can possibly imagine.
I don't want to say anything now, because that was just the perfect way to end. If we could just end the recording now, that we would. I think that's so powerful. Thank you so much, Alan. That's been amazing. Genuinely, I could listen to you speak all hour, but we do have time. So thank you so much to everybody who's been watching, everyone who's put comments in as well, and thank you so much for Alan, because failure is something that all of us at one point in our lives are touched with in one way or another, and sort of morphing it into a positive and coming up with ways to avoid doing it, which is just to do what you can. If you can't do anything, do something else. It seems like a really simple and powerful way of dealing with it. So thank you so much, Alan, for being here today and joining with us. So next week, for those of you who are going to be around next week, we've got Simon Lewis talking about company culture, I believe, Mike.
Massively important. And even you should have a company culture if you've got one person in your company and that's you. So yeah, good. I look forward to. Can I just say as well, Alan, every time we work together, awesome. I just love it. And that quote, as Kirsty said, we should have just ended on that because it was perfect. So thank you. Really appreciate that.
It's been a pleasure. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.